This is the To Be Single or Not to Be podcast, and we're doing what? Running it back.
So today's episode, I'm trying to remember, how did I do it before? I used to say, so today's topic is from episode number 2. It was recorded back on March the 28th of 2019. And the title of this episode was, Why Are So Many Sistas So Single? And the crazy part is, we recorded that back in 2019 and it's today, 2023, and I'm still single. A moment of silence for that shit. But we're going to talk about why, I'm okay with that. And there are reasons behind why I'm okay with that. But also, we'll hold on to that. So why are so many sisters so single? So starting out, one of the most unhinged beliefs that I had and unhinged thoughts that I held true to and let come out of my mouth back in 2019 was the fact that one of the primary reasons that women are single is because men are too intimidated by a woman's success. So I believed that men are just really too intimidated by a woman's success, and that's why we are single. Now, that is the most unhinged shit that I've ever heard of and ever said, because how in the world can I choose to not hold women accountable in any way for that? I definitely do not agree with that thought process now, because I really feel like, one, if you have good partner selection, meaning that you take the time to really get to know a person before you choose them and all that good stuff, it really does not come down to men being intimidated by you if you are choosing a person that you are equally aligned with. And if you feel like you're single because men are intimidated by you, I think personally we just have to evaluate that and figure out what that really means when we say it. Because I'm not of the notion anymore. People, in my life, people have said that I'm intimidating. And I always counter that and say, no, you are intimidated. But when it comes to the relationship realm, I'm not going to stand firm on that anymore, because I don't think that we are suffering in our relationships because of men being intimidated by us. Because even if there are men that are intimidated by us, we have enough men that are not intimidated by us where that's not a real factor. But what I think I can stand firm in now, and it was something that I did not really wholeheartedly, I don't know if I wasn't aware of, or I just didn't agree with, or maybe it just wasn't a thought back then, was that we had all this clarity around what we wanted in relationships, and that is absolute bullshit. And that stands firm today. That's where that thought comes from. So back then I felt like, men were intimidated and we knew exactly what we wanted, so men were the problem. And that's crazy. That, again, that's unhinged. Ultimately, I feel like right now, 2023, a lot of the relationship problems that people run into is because, one, they are not extremely, super, hyper, wildly clear about what they want in a relationship. I think that a lot of people go into relationships, unfortunately, it's kind of like, the Disney movies, we have this idea of romance and what it should look like, but also we never, in most cases, I'm not gonna say never, many times we don't go deep enough below the surface to really uncover and get clear about what we want. We want a man that works, we want a man that has the basic needs like transportation, he has a job, has health insurance, has all his teeth in his mouth, he treats me good 3 days a week. He only cursed me out on Wednesdays. He only played a game on the weekends for 6 hours, and then we go out for 2 hours. You see, y'all picking up what I'm putting down? We have this vision of all these things that we will allow in our relationship life, but what we need to be doing is getting really clear about what we want, meaning that we tap into what I like to call the relationship pillars. And the relationship pillars mean that we take a look, a really close look, like a microscopic look at the different categories of relationship, of a person and what you need in a relationship. And we really drill down into that until we can uncover what we clearly want at the bottom of it. So an example of that would be, one of the relationship pillars, we'll start with what everybody loves to talk about, and it does make the world go round, is money. So finances. So beyond just saying that this person has a job, that's important. But, beyond having a job, say, what do they like to spend their money on? Because a person can be a millionaire. And you may think, oh, I'm with a millionaire. I'm a millionaire. I just ain't got all my money yet. You may think that you're with a millionaire and you're going to have access to their millions. But that's not promised, that they don't have a stingy spirit. it's not promised that they spend their money wisely or on things that you enjoy. So you may have a person that's, say, a millionaire, but they like to gamble. They like to bet. They like to spend their money on expensive cars. They don't see importance in the things that you see importance in. You may see importance in saving and investing in vacations, so a person just having money is not enough. Also, you have to think about, if this person is, say, financially stable, is there any other place that their money is going to that I may not be okay with? And what I mean by that is, are they like a caretaker for somebody else? Are they on somebody else's payroll where this person expects and needs their money every single month in order, it's a part of their livelihood? Is the person a gambler? Do they have bad spending habits? Do they have financial goals, or do they just live, literally spend a check and get it right back, blowing money fast? So that's one thing, and I'm going to dive down the road. We're going to get deeper into the relationship pillars, but finances, that's one. The next thing, spirituality. You may say, oh, I want a God-fearing man, but what does that really mean? I once had somebody on the podcast that said that she dated a Negro that had a Bible in his house open to certain verses and chapters every time she would come over as like a prop. Not saying he never read it, but he would open it up to certain stuff. So maybe if she walked by, she would see, oh, he been reading about a Proverbs 31 woman. Okay. But lo and behold, this Negro knew nothing about spirituality. He knew nothing about God, knew nothing about the Bible. He was stunting on behalf of the Lord. So, a God-fearing man, what does that really mean? A God-fearing man, does that mean a person that do you go to church every Sunday? You go to Bible study, you study the word, and that's what you require? Or do you say you want a God-fearing man, but the last time your ass dusted the Bible off was Easter 2019? I want a person, when it comes to spirituality, just, do we have the same beliefs? Does that show up? Like, who is leading you? I always like to think, when it comes to marriage, one of the biggest things I always say is that, you get married to me, but, you're giving a vow to God. So if you want to be unfaithful, if you want to break these vows, it's like, you're breaking the vows first with God before you're breaking them with me. And if you're willing to, break a vow with God, I know you don't give a damn about me. So it's that. So, it's relationships, when the pillars, finances, spirituality, what is it? Physical health, mental and emotional well-being, occupational well-being, and just think about those on deeper levels. But I say all that to say that we have to get super clear about what we want before we can actually get what we want. And I feel like in 2019, I was not clear about what I wanted. So the next thing was, I really felt like in 2019 that another reason that so many sisters are single, I was saying, was because men are afraid of women doing better than them in life. And I think that's crazy because, one, let me give a caveat. I have ran into Negroes that they probably won't admit it present day, but they had a little attitude about what my life was looking like and what their life was looking like. And that's okay. But I don't think that that's the majority of men. And so I would say that I don't think the reason that we're single is because men are walking around just comparing women's lives to theirs and saying, oh, sis doing better than me, I don't want to be with her. I think that ultimately, if we have figured out that we want to be with someone that we are equally yoked with, that we are, I like to more so just say equally aligned with, if we're doing the work to do better with our partner selection, I think that we'll move further away from people that we feel are afraid of how well we're doing, and we'll be around people who kind of are moving how we're moving. I feel like present day, I ain't really met no men recently, but when I do happen to run across a man that is worth a conversation, I don't really run across, too many people that I feel like are so far, like beneath me. You have to be aware. I guess it's me being conscious, and I think this plays a role. I'm very aware of the circles I put myself in, the places I'm in. I know that, the caliber of man that I want to be around. And if I find that I'm in a place where it's like, if I feel like I'm around some peasants, then I need to do some evaluation. I'm not going to blame that on the man like I was doing back in 2019. So the other part is, this is an old tried and true. I talked about this a lot on season 1, and it's the story. If you've been an avid listener since then, I always talked about dating a person that works at Kroger. And this comes around the conversation of potential. And you all know we do not date potential. We do not date projects. We date people. So if a person is not where we want them to be on the day that we meet them, then, I understand, some growth and some things that the person, is going to do throughout life. But for the most part, if they aren't fully formed and shaped how we want them, we should probably just leave them alone, because potential, that's how you wind up ready to, ready to just say F it all and walk away from relationships because you counting on something that's probably never going to happen. But back to the regular scheduled program. A story that I used to always tell was in regards to the person that works at Kroger. So I know once upon a time somebody asked me, Shaanah, would you date somebody that worked at the local Kroger? And so I'm thinking about now, as I say this sounds like when Iyanla asked that lady, would she date the bus driver? I guess I need to say, would I date the guy who worked at the local Kroger? If he owns it. No, I'm playing. I'm going to go back to what I said back then and what I still believe is now. The question was, would you date the cashier at Kroger? And my answer was no. And so my answer is no, because I have learned and I understand what I want, need, and require in a relationship. It's kind of like the rule that I have now. I don't date men that have children. And I don't date men that that have children because I don't have children. And I understand that children are going to be your first priority. I understand that children can come in and rock your world, meaning that you can have all the plans you want, but if something happens with that child, they are the priority. It's just a lot of variables that come with being a parent, respect on respect. And that is why I just say I'm just not going to date that category of men. And so when I tell that to some people, they always say, well, that's going to limit, the men that you can date. Well, shit, if I'm a unicorn, if people feel like I got to find a unicorn to date, then hell, I'm a unicorn too. So I'm not going to limit myself, but it takes me to that. Like, I feel like if there's a category of people that are doing something that you are not a fan of, or that you don't like, or that you don't enjoy, the easiest way to not get caught up in some BS behind it is just like, don't date that category of people. So when it comes to someone saying, would you date the cashier that works at Kroger? No, I wouldn't. Like, other than going through checkout at Kroger, when would me and the cashier at Kroger probably meet? Now, I'm not going to say somebody that's a cashier at Kroger doesn't get out to nice places. Let me be clear. It's not like an elitist attitude. But I'm saying I don't know what the salary is of a person that works at Kroger, a cashier that works at Kroger. But what I imagine, unless they've been there like 40 years. If they've been there 40 years, they're too old for me. Anyway, but if a person works as a cashier at Kroger, I imagine that he and I don't live the same lifestyle, to put it plain. We probably don't do the same things. We don't necessarily run in the same circles, because at the grand old age of almost 40, if you are a cashier at Kroger, you probably just got out of probation. You probably got jail. But let me stop. Yeah. So I feel like, even with what Ebony said, I feel like, she said one thing and she tried to run it back another way. But I think that ultimately, if there's just a category of people that you feel like just don't suit you, it's not about saying that, they're beneath me, or I'm too good for them, or I'm above them. Like, it's nothing like that, not coming from me anyway. But I just feel like if there are categories of people that I want to stay, that I don't want to deal with, I'm not going to deal with them. So that goes back to how I felt way back in 2019. That came up, would you date somebody in that category? And I feel like that answer is still a hard no. Like, we can't. And the thing is, it's just like everything ain't for everybody. Like, once upon a time, I don't know why I let something tell me this, but it was somebody I was dealing with. And I think he might have told me that somebody at school, this was in college, like somebody said that I was unattractive. And I was like, okay, you're like, why are you telling me this? Like, are you trying to, I don't know what he was trying to do. I mean, it ain't work. If you a bad bitch, you don't need confirmation from nobody else. But when he told me that, I was like, like, okay. But a real thing I feel like he did say, was that, like, everybody ain't gonna like you. And again, when I think back, how you think back on some situations, and he was like, why were we having this conversation? Like, I've never in my life asked a Negro while I was in school for a pep talk. So why was this man telling me? I probably was being gaslit in some way, ain't goddamn know it. But that goes back to, everything ain't for everybody. And I ain't for everybody, just like everybody ain't for me. And I think we have to understand it. And I think once more people get that, I think that will help a lot of relationships too. Because I think that more people will sometimes understand that this is not a relationship that's going to work. This is a relationship you need to move on from, or this is a relationship that you probably should not have been in the first place. So that is still tried and true. Now, another thing that I talked about in March of 2019 was that, I said that non-negotiables are needed. And I still agree with that. I think non-negotiables are needed. And back then I said people are not as clear as I talked about on what they should be. And I think now, from 2019 to 2000, probably 2022, I'll give myself that. I always felt like I had these non-negotiables, but they really were not non-negotiables, because as soon as someone came along that I felt like I liked or liked me or was just talking in a way that I liked, I was always immediately willing to do the bending. Like Janet Jackson said, oh, you doing the bending. I was always doing the bending. So I had these non-negotiables, and they really weren't non-negotiables. And I think a lot of women present day, I think if you're listening to this, I encourage you and I challenge you to think about, if you've never thought about what your non-negotiables are, think about them, write it down, make it plain, and really get to the root of, what are things that you are not going to waver on at all. Because so many times, guilty number one, somebody comes along that looks a little good, makes you feel a little good, especially if you've been single for a period of time. They make you feel a little good because you haven't really gotten that male attention, and you start to make all these changes and compromises, and sometimes without them even asking you. But in other times, people that immediately come in, and they will ask you, because some Negroes are unhinged and will move in that way. So I think it comes down to understanding, what's something that at this point in my life, the reason I said 2022, that's when I went through my own healing journey. And I felt like for the first time in my real adult life, I really figured out so many things. I figured out what my non-negotiables are. I figured out what my boundaries are. I figured out, what I want on my list. And my list is something I continuously work on. That whole 300 things list that we talk about, I continuously, add things to that in regards to my relationship and partnerships. But I think when it comes to non-negotiables, we have to understand, and I'm trying to think, for me, this is something I've said before, but I never got, I used to always say, I need somebody that wants to travel. And I'm not saying we got to take 18 trips a year, but because it's a non-negotiable, that I want to be in a relationship. I will only, look, you got to speak it and say it exactly how it is. So that's why I keep changing. Like I say, I want, or I think, no, I know, and I will have. So I'm going to say it exactly as it is. So I know that I will only be in partnership with someone who is aligned with my vision of, for example, taking at least 2 vacations together a year. Something very small, but something that just comes to mind. The next thing, I know that I am only going to be in relationship with someone whose life looks a lot like mine. And what I mean by that is, in regards to where we are going in our career and the level we're at. Yes, I've been with my company for a certain amount of time, and I know everybody doesn't stay loyal to a company for that amount of time, but I just mean career-wise, where are you? Are you at the entry level? Are you at the management or AVP level? Where are you? I need for that to look a lot like my life, so because I know that tells me that we kind of have the same goals and mindsets. I also need a person, you have to be a go-getter like me. Not saying you got to be a hustler, because I don't really live by that mentality, but I mean, if you have goals, you have goals and you know how to achieve them, and you're actively working to get there. Something else, this is a newer thing for me. I said I only want to be with somebody who is serious about their wellness and their fitness. I'm a person, I work out at least 4 to 5 days a week, not because I really want to, I see that deep breath, but I have to, because I just know for the aesthetic that I want, if I want to look a certain way, I got to go to the gym. So I've dealt with people that just didn't give a damn, and that I don't like that. So someone that cares about wellness, I've dealt with people that I would be I'm watching my carbs, or I'm doing this thing, and just was disrespectful to my diet. No, if you understand what I'm doing, the work I'm putting in, you'll get it, and you won't challenge it. So those are just little things. And I'm going to have, when these episodes come out, there are going to be different guides that are available. You can find them on my website, or maybe a different website, but they'll be linked in my bio on Instagram, where you can find different guides for things like this. So we'll have guides that talk about, writing out those non-negotiables. We'll have guides that talk about You know, what do you have listed for your like relationship pillars? Like, what is your, you know, game plan for that? So I want to be able to give you all tools to help you to think about these things, because so many times we tend to say like, you know, I know what I want in a man. I know how to get a man. I know how to make my relationship work. And we all kind of do. We all kind of do. But I think that there's a lot of work for us to still do. And there are a lot of areas that we've thought about a little bit. We need to think about them on a much larger scale. There are a lot of areas that we put a little bit of work in. We need to put more work in, because I think ultimately if you do the work on the front end, it makes it so easy to eliminate, you know, the BS when it comes around. Like recently somebody told me that I had like an ice box, like, you know, like a Marianne ice box where your heart used to be. And I'm like, I really don't. But I'm just in a place where I guess if I ain't interested, I ain't interested. I ain't gonna fake the phone and pretend like I am. But also, not even just that about not being interested. I think it more so just comes down to like, I know, I guess talking that through, I guess I know what I want. And if somebody is around or saying something, or I put it this way, I'm just real at this point, I'm just kind of like real black and white with things. Like I know what A and B is. You can't really come along and be C and think you're gonna fool me into being A and B. Or if you come around saying some stuff that don't make sense to me, I'm gonna call it out. So, you know, that's okay. And I want everybody to get to that same place. So that said, I feel like one of the last things I talked about on this episode was more so like being single. And this is something I only touched on, but I really want to elaborate on in this moment, is that being single sometimes is going to be the long game when you know your worth and you know your value. And we have to be okay with that. You know, you may get lucky. Like some people say, you know, you have the love at first sight. You have people that meet 7 days later, they get married and they live happily ever after. You know, those are really like anomalies. It doesn't happen that way all the time. But in most instances, relationships do take time. And I think that when you are single and you know your worth, you know your value, you know what exactly what you want. You got those relationship pillars down pat. You know what your non-negotiables are. You know what your triggers are. You know what your boundaries are. You know exactly what it is you are looking for. Understanding that it's not build a man. So when I say know exactly what you want, it's more so just having a really deep and intricate understanding of what you are looking for in a partner. You are going to meet, because I know you are a beautiful person inside and out. You're going to meet some people. And you're going to meet some people that you got to understand they only good for that night when you met them out buying drinks. You're going to meet some people that are only good for like that one date y'all went on and it's not meant to be nothing. You're going to meet some people that may just be a good hangout buddy or business partner. You're going to meet some people that may be just a good little maintenance man if you can withstand that. But you're going to meet people that are not going to be your person. And you have to understand that everybody that you come into contact with, even a romantic contact, is not meant to be your man. So in knowing that, you'll understand that you're just going to meet a lot of people and not all of them are going to turn into the relationship that you are desiring and that you're wanting and that ultimately you really are waiting for. And waiting for it is not a bad thing. So I just want you all to remember that and know that it's not, you know, when it comes to sisters being single, the biggest thing may be just that a lot of us are in the wait because we know what we're worth. We have learned to know that what we are worth. And we got some work to do in that area, but we have learned how to navigate the relationship space. And in navigating the relationship space and moving in a positive manner towards the ultimate goal of, if that's just long-term companionship or if that's getting married, whatever your relationship goal is, it is going to take some time to get there. So what I had to say back on March the 28th of 2019 about why so many sisters are single, I absolutely do not fucking agree with. Because I was real unhinged. I was real unhinged in what I was talking about. But I want you all to know that now is the time where, you know, as women, we take accountability for how we show up in the relationship spaces. And we have to make sure we do the work to ensure that we pick partners who are more equally aligned with our lifestyles. And it's something else. Let me say this before I go. That another thing about somebody matching your life, and I think when we get into this on another episode, is that you want to get with somebody that likes you a lot, but also likes to do a lot of the same things that you like to do. You all don't have to do everything like mirror image, but you know, if you like to go out a lot and your person doesn't, it may start out cool. But at some point, you're going to want your person to come out. And they may come out for a little while, but eventually it's going to fall off. And then you're going to be mad about it, or they're going to be mad about it. And then if you're going out a lot by yourself, you may eventually meet somebody else while you out. And that turns into something else. So, again, try to, you know, get with somebody that's really aligned with you in all ways. Like, we have a lot of the same common interests. You know, you may have some differences. Like, you know, I don't know a lot of men that like to go ice skating, but I do, or rollerblading, but I do. I'm not expecting them to get into that. But, you know, they may like basketball, you like football, but, you know, do you hate sports? Not saying it's a deal breaker, but think about that. If Saturdays and Sundays during football season, say they a Bama fan, you know what's happening when the Bama game on, but you got an attitude. So you got to think about that. So, again, equally align with a person that likes you and likes a lot of the same things that you like. Take your time in partner selection and drilling down on that non-negotiable list and those relationship pillars that we're going to talk about. We got to go deeper than the service, you know, than the surface. We spend at the top of the year all this time making these vision boards for our whole life. And what we do, we slap a ring on it and a man on it and say we want to get married. But we don't really create a relationship vision board. And that's what the relationship pillars are for. And then, you know, the last piece, just get clear about what you want. Understand that you will not be doing the bending. And know that at the end of the day, the healthy and happy relationship that you desire will eventually come. So thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of the Running It Back podcast. Running It Back podcast. Thank you all for tuning in to the first episode of the Running It Back series of the To Be Single or Not To Be podcast. Make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. Make sure you give the show a review if you're listening to it on any of the podcast platforms. And I'm signing off now with yours truly, Shaanah Montanna.